say, the reason why you're not in 12 weeks, you took every man around the country, Kilheeney, George, everything. Today, come out. You matter, there's 14-year-old on you. You get yourself out today, and you'll have fight today. You'll have fight today. Pauline, the last time my father seen you is when you got him locked up at the front of the great pub.
On a windswept Ayrshire beach, the calm shatters. Masked men spill from a van, wielding shovels and metal poles. Screams pierce the air as vehicles ram into caravans, tearing through a quiet traveller camp. Chaos erupts in broad daylight, a brutal clash that leaves blood on the sand. But this isn't a random brawl. It's the latest chapter in a centuries-old cycle of vengeance, rooted deep in Scotland's hidden traveller communities. What drives families to war? And how far will this bloodshed go? Welcome to Crime Pulse. If you're new here, hit subscribe and join our growing community digging into the UK's most dangerous criminal underworlds. Like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. In the heart of 12th century Scotland, a unique people thrived on the move. The Scottish travellers, or Nawken, weren't wanderers from foreign lands. They were born from this rugged soil, descendants of scattered Highland clans, itinerant craftsmen, and storytellers who roamed from glen to glen. Their hands shaped tin into intricate wares, their voices carried tales and cant, a tongue woven from Gaelic, Scots, and traces of Romani. They were tinsmiths, pearl fishers, horse traders, masters of survival in a world that often shunned them. As historian Dr. Fiona MacLeod puts it, Scottish travellers aren't gypsies from abroad, as some assume. They're Scotland's own, likely born from the clans scattered after feudal upheavals or the Highland clearances. Their paths wound from the Cairngorm's wild peaks to the bustling markets of lowland towns. By the 1500s, their presence was unmistakable. Horse fairs in Appleby, seasonal work in Perthshire, campfires dotting the borders. But visibility brought suspicion. In 1571, Scotland's Parliament branded them outlaws, misnaming them Egyptians and ordering banishment, branding, or death for their nomadic ways. The persecution didn't stop there. In the 20th century, the so-called Tinker experiment tore children from traveller families, placing them in institutions to erase their culture, a policy now called cultural genocide. Traveller elder Margaret Stewart recalls, "They tried to break us, took our weans, burned our camps. But we're still here. We're Scotland's own, born from the clans, and we carry our history in our blood." Pushed to society's edges, travellers forged tight-knit families, bound by loyalty and an ironclad code of honour. That closeness, born of survival, would set the stage for conflict. In a world that rejected them, Scottish travellers turned inward, their families becoming fortresses. Honour wasn't just a value, it was everything. A cheated deal, a slighted name, a romance turned sour. These weren't personal. They were attacks on a family's soul. As traveller advocate John Docherty explains, it's about respect. If someone crosses your family, say, cheats you in a deal, or insults your kin, it's not just you they're hitting, it's everyone. You don't let that stand. It spirals, fast. Once settled with fists or quiet exile, these vendettas darkened as Scotland's cities grew. By the 21st century, old grudges collided with new pressures, poverty, shrinking campsites, whispers of organised crime. Families like the Joyces, Irish travellers long settled in Scotland, clashed over territory or pride, their disputes echoing ancient clan wars. But a new spark lit the fuse. Social media. Platforms like TikTok turned private feuds into public spectacles, with taunts and threats spreading like wildfire, daring rivals to strike back. From Highland trails to Ayrshire's coast, these feuds are no longer just family matters. They're a cycle of vengeance, spilling into streets and shattering lives. To understand the fires of modern Scottish traveller feuds, we must first step back into the shadows of history, where the seeds of conflict were sown amid a rugged landscape of survival and strife. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Scotland's travellers, nomads bound by family and tradition, faced tensions that echoed the lawless days of the border reivers, those raiders who, from the 13th to 17th centuries, plagued the Anglo-Scottish frontier with theft, blackmail, and blood feuds that knew no borders. By 1824, in the windswept Borders region, these echoes flared into violence among traveller communities. A Romanical traveller, John Smith, was publicly whipped by a rival family in a Berwickshire village, his horses cut loose and scattered, an act of humiliation over a disputed horse trading deal that struck at the heart of his livelihood. The response was swift. Smith's kin torched the rivals' camp, stole their livestock, and sparked weeks of retaliatory raids across the Tweed Valley, leaving families divided and camps in ashes. These early clashes, rooted in trade disputes and family honour, set a pattern. Slights weren't forgotten, they demanded reckoning, but the feuds weren't confined to Scotland's borders. Travellers, united by shared traditions, gathered at events like the Appleby Horse Fair in Cumbria, a centuries-old meeting ground where Scottish, Irish and English travellers traded horses, forged alliances and sometimes settled scores. These gatherings could ignite tensions that rippled far beyond their tents. In 2016, a brutal feud erupted in Loughton, Essex, showing how these conflicts crossed borders, drawing in families from the north, including Scottish travellers who frequented Appleby. On a quiet October evening, Paul Saunders, a 30-year-old traveller, led two masked accomplices in a savage ambush outside a bar. Their target, Edward Dooley, 24, was attacked with machetes and crowbars in a 30-second frenzy that nearly severed his hand and fractured his skull. Saunders was sentenced to 8 years for grievous bodily harm, the attack tied to an 18-month feud between traveller families, fueled by betrayal over a business deal gone sour. While this bloodbath unfolded in England, its shockwaves reached Scottish traveller communities, as families connected through Appleby carried grudges north, weaving a tapestry of vengeance that linked camps from Glasgow to Ayrshire. These early sparks, whether a whipped traveller in 1824 or a machete swing in 2016, lit the fuse for the storms that would soon engulf Scotland's streets. On the evening of August 12, 2017, the streets of Paisley, just off Scotland's bustling M8 motorway, became a battleground for a feud that roared into public view. Picture a quiet Saturday, the hum of traffic fading into dusk, when suddenly a convoy of cars and vans tore through the town with reckless fury. This was no ordinary chase. It was a high-speed clash between rival Scottish traveller families, believed to be the McPhees and Dohertys, locked in a bitter struggle over territory. Engines screamed as vehicles swerved onto pavements, tyres screeching through red lights, weaving dangerously through Renfrew Road's evening traffic. From one van, a passenger leaned out, gripping a heavy wooden bat, swinging wildly at a rival's car in a brazen display of rage. The pursuit stretched 3 chaotic miles, a blur of metal and menace that left onlookers frozen in fear. Mobile phone footage, later shared among locals, captured the pandemonium, a white van careening onto a sidewalk, a bat-wielding figure silhouetted against headlights, and the distant wail of sirens as police raced to intervene. Police Scotland's response was swift. Officers intercepted the convoy near Renfrew Road, halting the chase before it claimed lives. 3 men, aged 27, 31, and 35, were arrested on charges of dangerous driving and possession of an offensive weapon, their identities shielded to avoid fueling further conflict. Detectives traced the violence to a simmering dispute over the lucrative scrap metal trade, a modern turf war echoing the horse trading rivalries of centuries past. The Paisley chase wasn't just a fleeting eruption, it marked a turning point where private traveller feuds spilled onto public streets, dragging bystanders into a cycle of vengeance that showed no sign of slowing. The year 2022 brought the feud to a shattering crescendo in Caldercruix, a quiet village in North Lanarkshire near Airdrie, where a long-simmering rivalry between 2 traveller families, the McPhees and the Williamsons, exploded into open warfare. Around 3:30 p.m. on Friday, November 4th, the streets echoed with screams and the clash of metal as armed men descended on Caldercruix Road, turning a peaceful afternoon into a scene of raw brutality. Wielding machetes that glinted under the autumn sun, baseball bats swung with vicious intent, and even a shotgun brandished in threat, the rivals clashed in a series of attacks that left the community reeling. One harrowing video, anonymized to shield identities but stark in its horror, captured a man waving a shotgun outside a caravan, only to be overwhelmed by machete-wielding assailants who hacked at him relentlessly, leaving his face bloodied and his pleas echoing in the air. But the most chilling moment came when a tipper truck reversed at high speed into a mobile home, a chalet where children as young as 2 were inside with their family. Wood splintered, walls buckled, and a woman's desperate screams pierced the chaos as the vehicle rammed the structure, endangering the innocent lives within. In a recorded phone call between the families, the venom poured out. A McPhee member snarled, "I am killing you, stone dead. I am killing you, weans, women, your father, the lot. I'm promising you now, the lot of you are dead. You're getting it. You are getting cut to bits. No McPhee ever done anything to a Williamson, you dirty dossers." The Williamson side fired back. "You shouldn't have pulled guns out then. We were only coming to speak with you and you pulled guns out. Don't worry, we've got plenty of yoggers here," with a woman adding, "My father's not there. Son, my boy had a fight with your wee boy and you went up and rammed a trailer with my wee weens in it. My wee nieces and nephews were inside that. Children were in that chalet and you rammed it." Days later, revenge struck in another anonymized clip. A red truck was battered to ruins and a bloodied man was beaten on the ground, forced to gasp, "McPhee is the best," while begging for mercy as his attackers loomed over him, only stopping when a voice off camera declared, "That's it. Job done. It's over. Forget it." The McPhee family, long whispered about as a notorious crime clan with ties to organized activities, stood at the center of the storm, their reputation amplifying the fear that gripped the area. Police Scotland responded with urgency, flooding the village with increased patrols to quell the unrest. Officers attended the initial disturbance on Caldercruix Road, launching a full investigation into the multiple incidents. Locals, many too frightened to be named, voiced their despair as the violence encroached on their daily lives. In Caldercruix, the crossfire wasn't just literal, it trapped innocent villagers in a web of fear, where kids shouldn't have to live in such dread, and a once tranquil community begged for peace. As the feuds evolved into the mid-2020s, the timeline surged forward with unchecked ferocity, blending ancient grudges with the glare of modern scrutiny. No longer confined to remote campsites or whispered threats, these clashes invaded public spaces and digital realms, turning personal vendettas into spectacles that gripped the nation. In May 2024, the Vine Pub in Collyhurst, Manchester, a gathering spot with ties to Irish traveller communities, including those with connections across the UK, including Scotland, became the epicenter of a savage brawl. On March 9, 2024, what began as a somber wake for a Doherty family member descended into 30 minutes of utter chaos between the Joyce and Doherty clans. Bottles shattered against walls, chairs were hurled like weapons, and fists flew in a whirlwind of violence that left patrons scrambling for cover. Dougie Joyce, 36, a former bare-knuckle boxer known in traveller circles, and his brother Tom Joyce, 27, were at the heart of the fray. Tom was captured on CCTV grabbing a beer bowl, smashing it, and striking a Doherty family member across the face, while Dougie joined the melee that spilled across the pub. The court outcomes were swift and severe. At Manchester Crown Court on May 29, 2024, Dougie was jailed for 20 months and Tom for 14 months, both for violent disorder. This brawl, rooted in long-standing family tensions, underscored how wakes, meant for mourning, could ignite into battlegrounds, pulling in networks that stretched from Manchester to Scottish traveller groups. The peak of this digital age escalation struck in March 2025 in the coastal town of Stevenston, Ayrshire, where a feud between rival traveller families erupted into a day of terror that scarred the community. Days before the main clash, precursor attacks set the stage. Masked gangs were filmed smashing cars with shovels and golf clubs, their actions a grim warning of the violence to come. On March 9, 2025, around 2:10 p.m., the beachfront on Trelawney Terrace became a war zone as about 20 masked men, clad in high-vis vests and balaclavas, piled out of a white transit van and stormed a traveller encampment. Armed with golf clubs, metal poles, spades, shovels, and even an uprooted road sign, they battered rivals, damaged vehicles, and shattered caravans amid screams from women and children. The assault spilled 2 miles away to the Morrison supermarket car park on Kilwinning Road, where a van rammed into vehicles, crushing metal and sending debris flying. 3 victims, a 20-year-old man and 2 teenagers aged 17 and 15, were rushed to University Hospital Crosshouse with serious but non-life-threatening injuries, including cuts, bruises, and possible fractures from the ramming. Later that night, around 11 p.m., a caravan was torched on Garnock Road in nearby Kilwinning, flames engulfing the structure in what police probed as a potential retaliation, though no direct link was confirmed at the time. The feud's digital dimension amplified the horror when a chilling TikTok video surfaced, showing a baying mob of masked men issuing threats to their rivals. In the blurred clip, a burly ringleader barked, "You get yourself out today and you'll have fight today," challenging a showdown at 2 o'clock amid jeers and posturing that ratcheted up fears of more bloodshed. Social media turns private grudges public, inviting more blood, as these videos not only taunt foes but broadcast the violence to a wider audience, perpetuating the cycle. Police Scotland launched an urgent investigation, with dozens of officers and ambulance crews responding to the initial brawls. By mid-March, no arrests had been made, but inquiries remained ongoing, with a spokesperson stating, "A 3 people found seriously injured at a premises in Kilwinning Road, Stevenston, following an earlier disturbance on Trelawney Terrace." These mid-2020s surges reveal broader connections, where traveller feuds increasingly overlap with gangland elements, such as disputes over drug territories that blur the lines between cultural honour and criminal enterprise. Yet, at their core, these conflicts remain tethered to deep cultural roots, codes of respect, family loyalty, and historical marginalization that turn slights into wars. Traveller voices, often drowned out by the violence, rise in condemnation. As one community representative, Seamus McPhee, a Scottish traveller advocate, has said in response to similar clashes, "It hurts us all. We're not all like this." This isn't what our culture stands for. It's a few dragging the many into the mud. These words echo a plea for understanding, reminding us that behind the headlines are communities striving for peace amid the storm. In the wake of these feuds, the toll on Scotland's traveller communities and beyond is profound, a ripple of destruction that echoes through lives and landscapes. Hospitalizations from brutal clashes have become a grim reality. But the deepest wounds are invisible. The pervasive community fear that turns quiet villages into fortresses of anxiety. Political responses have surged in condemnation, yet these calls for intervention highlight a vicious cycle. One act begets another. A taunt leads to a brawl to revenge. When will it end? As hate crimes against travellers persist, often described as regular as rain, the fear perpetuates isolation, fueling more conflict in a loop of retribution. Amid the shadows, calls for change rise like a dawn promise, urging dialogue and reconciliation. In June 2025, First Minister John Swinney delivered a historic apology in Holyrood for the Tinker experiment and centuries of harm, stating unreservedly, "The Scottish Government acknowledges and unreservedly apologises for the harm caused to Gypsy traveller individuals and communities by historical policies." This acknowledgement of cultural genocide marked a turning point, backed by community-led efforts like those from Amnesty International UK, which campaigns to end discrimination and respect traveller rights. In closing, let the words of a timeless Scottish Gaelic proverb, often sung in traveller walking songs, linger. The world will end, but love and music will endure. Overlaid with hopeful stats, hate crime charges in Scotland dipped 1.2% from 2024 to 2025 post-apology, signalling a potential decline in broader tensions. Understanding starts with listening. Reach out, learn, and help build a Scotland where every voice finds peace. Thanks for watching today's episode on Crime Pulse. If you found this video interesting, please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notification to dive deeper into the truths of UK's hidden worlds.